Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of our podcast, Tvrdý koule. Our podcast is about cricket in Czech, but today we're going to make an exception. We're going to make it in English, which means I will be less prominent with my version of English, and I'll let Steve take over with his north-western version of English. Ciao, Steve.
Hello, Michael. Thank you for the kind introduction.
And we have the privilege, and I'm really glad that we can talk today with our dear friend Edward Knowles. Ciao, Ede.
Ciao, how are you guys?
Very well, thank you, Ed. Very well.
Really glad to see you and hear you, Ede, after some time. Ed is I'll just make a quick introduction. Ed is our dear friend and our teammate. I still consider him our teammate because once a vino, always a vino. Although not always, but at this time it really works out. And I'm glad Ed is part of our family. He is originally from South Africa, from Cape Town, and currently resides in United States, in Minnesota, with his beautiful family. And we would like to talk with him today about cricket and about Czech cricket. Is that right, Steve?
That is correct, yeah. And we've prepared quite a long list of questions that we're going to ask Ed. Yes, so welcome, Ed. It's great to be able to talk to you again. How's life in Minnesota? How's the weather?
Yeah, and it's not too bad actually. It's finally getting a bit cold. It's been a pretty warm winter so far, but today's a bit cold.
Okay, I'm pleased to hear that. It's been a bit like that here as well. We had some snow a couple of weeks ago, but now it feels like being back in England, to be completely honest. Anyway. Yes, so listen, Ed, I just wanted to, we just had a few questions. I mean, the idea really behind the podcast was that we would, we'd bring somebody in from the outside a little bit, someone who knows Czech cricket a lot, but obviously your situation is quite unique because you've been basically involved in Czech cricket from the bottom all the way to the top. And from us, and so we thought it would be really good just to get some of your insights about what it's been like to be involved in Czech cricket, really from the very beginning through to when you left us this year, after you'd been involved, from with the Czech national team and as the captain of the Czech national team. So, just a load of questions, but and I think we've already shared some of the questions with you, but before we get onto the questions, I just wanted to ask you, there's the big news of the day in cricket is, of course, that Stuart Broad has been awarded the CBE in the New Year's Honours list, and I know that you're a big fan of Stuart Broad, so I just wanted to get your views on that first up.
It's absolute garbage. Stuart Broad doesn't deserve anything. One of the most overrated cricketers I've ever seen. Let's not talk about his personality.
I think he's better than Nikai Ntini, that's for sure. Better than Vernon Philander, I reckon. What do you think?
Vernon Philander was an absolute masterclass of the ball. I don't have a lot of time for Stuart Broad, unfortunately.
How can you disrespect someone who's going to get such an honour of the realm? It's terrible. Yeah, as you know, Ed, I also share your view on Stuart Broad. I think he's well overrated, and I think he's not my favourite person on a cricket field either, to put it mildly.
Yeah, we can all agree with that.
We can all agree on that, yeah. Except from, of course, his dad.
They're not here.
His dad.
Okay,
his dad likes him. Okay. And I think, but his dad's an ICC referee, isn't he?
Yeah.
No conflict of interest there, though, obviously.
Not anymore.
Anyway, Ed, listen. So could we just? I've got a few personal questions to ask you. Well, not so personal questions, but first one I'd like to ask would be your cricketing background. How did you end up playing cricket? I guess being born in South Africa, cricket was kind of part and parcel of your upbringing.
Yeah, so I think, for me, being born in South Africa, and then I sort of got introduced to the game when I was about 5-6 years old, and I literally just fell in love with the game. I played with since that age, and I just loved the sport so much. It was literally my life since primary school, through high school, through university. I just loved the game. I couldn't stop playing it. I looked forward to every single weekend where I could get out into the cricket field and play cricket. I would literally eat, sleep, play cricket as much as I could. It was literally my life.
Yeah, when you were actually playing in like a junior cricket, I mean, what were the kind of teams that you were playing for? School teams, like regional teams, anything like that? What was the kind of What was the?
Yeah, so I started off in primary school and I just played for my school. And then I went off to high school and just went through the age groups of my high school. I mean, I think in South Africa, cricket is a school sport. You don't, I mean, it's changing a little bit now where there is junior clubs, but it's mainly a school sport. So you're playing for your school. So I played under 14, under 15, and then after under 15 level, it sort of becomes open where it becomes from under 15 to under 19. So then you start having your first side, second side, third side. And I think I was around about, 16, 15 years old when I made the first team at my high school. And then my final year of school was when I became the captain of my high school team. Yeah. And then after high school, I went on to play club cricket at my local club, Durbanville Cricket Club. That was a big shock for me, actually, because I'd come from first team high school level. And then all of a sudden you're thrown in with the grown men. And I was thrown into the third side. It was quite a big hit to my ego because I thought, here I am coming first team cricket from school to playing third team. But I made my way up and I became second team captain. And I played a few games for the first side before I left to London. But what I would say is that second 11 club cricket in South Africa is a hell of a strong standard.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to see that a little bit myself. My son was on a cricket scholarship in the UK playing in Scarborough. And he was playing for Scarborough Cricket Club, and they play at one of the outground. Scarborough Cricket Ground, North Marine Road. It's the outground for Yorkshire cricket. So, and they've got a very strong team. And I had a chance to watch the third team was like just about my level, to put it mildly. And then second team was already, there were some serious players there. And then the first team, I mean, I would not have enjoyed bowling to some of the fellas that were batting there. They hit the ball very, very hard indeed. So yeah, I have a very good understanding. And yet, even at that level, club cricket still in England is pretty decent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you went to England, and then you had the opportunity to experience cricket in Albion, and the home of the game.
Yes, I went to London in 2005. I moved to London from South Africa. I finished my degree in teaching, and I went straight to London to go and teach. And I just back then, internet was around, but it wasn't like it is now. So I was scrolling through, magazines, and the odd internet page there was a popular website called Gumtree.com, which everybody used. And I stumbled across a cricket club in West London, and that literally became my second home.
Which club was it?
Q Cricket Club.
Q
Cricket Club, down in just in Richmond, Q area.
Yeah, posh part of London, very nice.
Yeah, it was beautiful, and it surprised me because I think my take on English cricket was, coming from South Africa, playing club cricket, it's very professional. You've got to train twice a week. You've got to turn up at practices on time. And then living in London, that just wasn't an option because people were just traveling to work and just couldn't get. So it was a lot more laid back. But what I would say is the standard was very, very, very strong in London. Mm-hmm. So I played 4 years in London playing in the Thames Valley League, and I would say it was some of the best players I've ever played against. I've played against Ali Naqvi. He was a guy that stood out to me. He actually made 100 on debut for Pakistan, and he was an overseas pro for one of the clubs we played against. And there were a number of players which I played against, which were outstandingly good players. It was a good level. I just loved the club. Beautiful place to play, and just the cricket grounds in England are spectacular.
So obviously, after all of that, you then moved to Czech. You moved to Prague.
Yeah. So when I moved to Prague in 2011. I took up a job I wanted to leave London, so I took up a job at the Prague British School. I got a job, luckily enough, and moved to Prague. But I never had any intentions of playing cricket. I spent 2011 in Prague, and then 2012 was my first summer away from the UK. But I actually went back to London and stayed on my mate's couch just so I could play at least 8 games of cricket for my old club.
Nice.
So that's pretty much what I did. I I didn't actually know that cricket existed in Czech at that time. I'd sort of seen a few pictures, but I had no interest in joining because I just wanted to go back to London to play. So I did that for 2 years. And then in about 2014, I actually met our good friend, Mr. Toby Haslam.
Oh, really?
And he was, and he was the one that introduced me to Vinaradi and said, come and play for us. It's a great bunch of guys. And yep, so Toby's the one that got me in Vinaradi.
Okay. So what was your first impression, Ede? I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, turning up for my first game at Vinaradi, I'll never forget it. It was snowing.
Yeah.
It was freezing. But for me, what made it special was there were just 11 really good bunch of guys that I was playing with, and it was still a sport that I loved. And I couldn't commute to London every summer vacation, and I actually loved it. It was a lot more chilled out, have a beer at the break or whatever it was, but just chilled out. But also, there were some good players and some good standards, and it was fun. It was very enjoyable. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So when you got here, I mean, what was it like? I mean, in terms of, I think in terms of the teams, the grounds, and the general quality of the game. I mean, what were your first, what struck you? I mean, the first thing that I always think when I come here is that, like, I'm so used to Czech cricket that I don't really perceive it in a very objective way. Yeah, so I'm kind of used to the grounds. I know what to expect. But I think for someone who's coming from like South Africa or the UK, that must be one of the first things that strikes you.
Mm-hmm.
You can be honest, Ede. We value that opinion.
No, I think for me, the first thing that I noticed, that, like I said to you before, when I moved to England, how beautiful the grounds are in England. And so turning up to Vinoj on a Saturday morning, and the grass hadn't been cut, and you're playing on an outfield that's bumpy, that used to annoy me, and not just it used to annoy a lot of us. That was hard to comprehend. And then in England as well, what's magical about playing cricket in England is the teas. So you've got to bring your own packed lunch to Vinoj, and yeah, it was.
You have to bring your own toilet paper to Vinoj.
And there were no facilities. I mean, then after the game, you would have a shower in England. You would have a beer on tap, and this was all new to me. But I think those initial days when I started, it wasn't. I was just fortunate enough to play cricket, but it was more. I was hanging out with 11 mates, and then they were really. It was good times back then. I think the longer I played, the more frustrated I got with facilities, and the more frustrated I got with other things. But that initial reaction, it was hard to comprehend sometimes. But it was okay.
Yeah. So, Ede, we can maybe start talking about your national team career, which, for me, to be fair, we often mention it on the podcast, and I'm quite often rather skeptical about the current state of the national team. And I think, from what I remember, when you were the captain of the national team, that was, in my opinion, a bit of a heyday of the Czech national team, because you were rising, Joe, in the world numbers. There was definitely a team spirit, in my opinion. You were, what looked to me like you really achieved to connect everyone in the team, and you worked as one, and it was a good spirit in the team as well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think for me, when I started playing in Czech, I had this. When I realized the direction that Czech cricket was going, I had this desire to want to play Czech, to play for the Czech team. It was a boyhood dream to play international cricket, and although not playing for South Africa, which was obviously way out of my league, but to come to Czech, which I still consider home. It was something I wanted to do, and so I played a few years for the Czech team, or a year or so, and then I got asked to be the captain, and obviously I wasn't going to turn it down. And I think, yeah, back then I agree with you, Misha. I think the spirit of the Czech team was unbelievable, and I'd like to think that was partly due to me, but not necessarily all down to me. I think we had good team management. I think we had We had players that represented all the clubs that were in the league. Different nationalities within the team, and I think we just gelled together, we bonded together, and we did things in the right way. And like you said, we were rising up the ICC ranks, which was important to me and important to us as a team. And I do look back at those days, and we had some incredible trips abroad and with good success actually.
With some world records as well.
Yeah,
some of them still stand.
When was the last time you played for the Czech national team? Was it at that tournament where you got your finger broken by that Belgian fast bowler?
I played one more after that. Okay. So that was the last tournament I was captain. That would have been 2020.
Yeah.
And then early 2021, we had the CE Cup in Prague, and that would have been my last one. I mean, I think a lot of the reason why I stopped playing for the Czech team is, I had a baby. We had a baby at COVID, and then just having a youngster at home, it was very hard to commit to playing. I wanted to. My goal at that time was to stop captaining the Vinaradi, which I did, to focus more on the Czech national team. But then the Czech national team went in a different direction, and I got phased out, which was totally fine. I'm proud of what I did, and I enjoyed my time in the Czech team.
Yeah, I mean the arrival of children is the death knell of many an amateur cricket career, I have to say. I mean, I know this myself. In fact, my cricketing hiatus coincides with the arrival of my son, and then his ability to start playing cricket. So I kind of missed it. When he started playing. Then my wife said, "Go on, take him out. You can also play a bit of cricket whilst you're there." So yeah, I'd say it's a common story, but you know. That's life, I guess. It's
absolutely.
I mean, you mentioned the Czech national team. After you'd stopped playing for them, there was it started going in a different direction. I mean, what? If I can be a bit controversial, I'd just like to ask you what in what sense was that? What was the issue from your view?
Well, I think at that time of around about 2020, after that tournament, and we had a tournament in Luxembourg, and it was COVID. I mean, there was a lot going on, but after that tournament, I think there were some major changes in the Czech committee, and then we lost our manager, we lost the coach, and a new coach, a new manager came in, and they had sort of a different idea on things, and they wanted to replace the captaincy, and I got given a call to say that I was no longer needed as captain, but they wanted me still in the team, and I said for sure I'd still play. So that was the direction they were on, and I did still play one more tournament, but that was that was the last tournament that I played for the Czech national team. Okay,
yeah. No, I mean, I have to say, I mean, I've played under quite a few captains, and I very much enjoyed you as my captain. I mean, I was always a bit surprised with the confidence that you showed in me with my bowling. I always, if I would have been the captain, I would have brought myself up at least a couple of overs earlier than you allowed me to. But no, I mean, your management of the team was always really, really good. And the other thing that I enjoyed was that you made sure that the changes in the bowling, the change around was quick, which is something which does my head in Czech cricket. It takes so long, after an over to change ends. It's like the slowest process on God's earth. So, yeah, in that respect, you're sorely missed. If only, not just for that, but that's one of the things I really do miss. Is you say, "Come on, lads, quick turnarounds, come on," instead of people sidling along and our captains deciding maybe he should be in that position, or maybe we should bring the third man up, or should we have him deep? It's like. This is for like a T10 game, Anyway.
Yeah.
No, I agree. No, I've seen my share of experts coming to Czech Republic and starting to play cricket, and I think there's a bit of a sickness sometimes that some of the guys who come from cricket country, they show up in this, as you say, on a snowing day in the middle of nowhere on a terrible pitch with a bunch of amateurs. Sometimes it gets into their head, in my opinion, and they somehow act like they just arrived from an IPL to show us in Czech Republic how to play cricket. And that's what I liked about Ed the most, Joe. That I could literally see that he's a really good cricketer, but you also you as a captain you were like whatever was the standard of the player, you always captained everyone as a team. It was your aim was to perform as a team properly. I really enjoyed that.
Well, I think just one of the things that as the captain of Vinohrady rather than the Czech national team, I mean, what were the kind of like the standout moments for you as the captain of Vinohrady? I mean, we've got to mention Shafi for the start off. He's one of the biggest standouts because I think I've never seen such a ball magnet in my life, right? I mean, the poor lad. He only played one game. I think wherever you put him, the ball went to him. And we all know what happens with every one of those catches, opportunities.
I think for me, if just going back to Misha quickly before I go on to Steve's question, I think for me as a captain, I've always tried to be, I try to get everyone involved. People are selected in the team, no matter your ability. I always took that aboard in Czech that you might have people that are new to the game, but you've got to try and make them part of the team and part of the game. You don't want someone to turn up and do absolutely nothing. That's just wasting their time and they're not enjoying it. So, as a captain, I always try to get people involved. But sometimes standout moments for Steve, like Steve said, Safi, we had this lad Safi who turned up for us. I don't think anyone had actually seen him before, and he couldn't catch a ball, but the ball just followed him all day long. But I think one of my most standout moments was definitely Dr. Misha was in this game. We had a game down in Dresden. And once again, these were some good times. I mean, Dresden was a great place to go play cricket back then.
Tours.
It was a beautiful field, nice wicket. And we ended up traveling to Dresden, and Wojta's car caught on fire, and Misha and Wojta were putting out the fire with beer. And then we ended up playing the game of cricket. We won the game, and I think Toby actually got the last wicket. And we drove back to Prague victorious, and we decided to stop in Ústí for a beer. I don't know why we ended up stopping in Ústí. And we ended up gate crashing. We ended up gate crashing some girl's hen party, and it was just some really good times and good people. And we were pretty successful back then as well. In I think that must have been 2016, 2017.
I think the first season I joined, I think we won at least one of what I think we won the 20 over competition. Maybe even won the 40 over one as well. But it was, I mean, we had quite a unit in those days.
And also, I really enjoyed. It's funny because I didn't think I would enjoy it, but I used to love the Winter League. Back when we played out in the Olszanska. When I remember turning up there, I was thinking, this is like. But then when we actually played, and it was a time to get to play with your friends on the weekend in the height of winter, and we were pretty successful in that. We had good teams, and it lasted an hour, and then we'd go for a beer afterwards. It was always good.
Yeah. You'll be happy to hear, Eda, that we finally have winter training this year as a Vinohrady. So hopefully we'll be strong this winter season.
Yeah. And we've had to play with a tape ball, which makes it.
We're working on that. We're
working on it. We arrived with tennis balls, but I brought some tape with me. And so we taped it up, and that was it, really. I mean, I've never played with a tape ball in my life until about a month ago, but there you go. Never too late to teach an old dog new tricks, I suppose.
Eddie, I have one question for you, because, I agree with you. You're a really good captain, and you always wanted everyone to have a go. But I would really like to see, and what's your opinion on that? Would you be able to do that with a T10 format of the game? I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe.
Definitely not.
Yeah. Okay.
I would never play T10 because I would never actually get a game. I wouldn't get a bowl. I'd be like fourth change bowler, and I'd be batting at 9 or 10. So I mean, what am I going to do? And you don't have slips. Because I'm too old to go anywhere in the outfield. So I mean, what am I? So no, T10's definitely not for me. Just as a general kind of like reflection on the, I guess, 11 or 12 years in the Czech Republic playing cricket for, how long did you play? About 7 or 8 years. Just
Yeah, probably 10 years.
Just kind of looking back and just reflecting on that. I mean, what, of those 11 or 12 years, what were the kind of like the main kind of things that struck you with it, or what lived with you? I mean, what were the big standouts? Or maybe not standouts, but just general your impressions of Czech cricket, where it is,
Yeah, I think when I started, for me, the biggest disappointment, if I'm honest, is I would say in the last 2 years things have kind of improved, but since I started, there was never any kind of talk about any infrastructure being built at the grounds, any kind of toilets being built or anything like that. There was always nothing seemed to get improved. It was year in, year out. You would turn up, you would do your work party, and then you would turn up at a game and the fields weren't cut. And this was a weekly ongoing thing. And then as soon as I opened my mouth to the old COO, he used to get upset that I was, making a fuss about the field not being cut or this wasn't looking good. And I'd say, in the last 2 or 3 years, I haven't been as involved as much since we had Cooper, but I have seen a bit more of an improvement. I know there's some new mats going down, and I know, in fact, that Venki and others are, mowing the lawn and getting it more cricket-like. But I still think there's a lot that can be done. I think, I think Czech cricket is calling out for, I honestly said, I've said this a lot of times, a lot of people, that I think the Czech Republic has the ability to have one of the nicest cricket fields in Europe, in Central Europe, if there was a little bit of money involved and a little bit of planning and a little bit of forward thinking. I honestly think we could have one of the nicest fields in Central Europe. We've got, Vinosh is a good setup. If something could be set up there, I love Valveri. I think Valveri had so much going for it besides its owner. But the field was slightly too small, but if you pumped in a bit of money into Valveri, it could be an absolutely brilliant cricket field.
Yeah. I think everyone would agree on that. I mean, it was. The track was a nightmare. I remember the first game I played there. It was soaking wet at one end, so we could only bowl at one end, and there was like a concrete ledge, which as you were coming into bowl, you would land on the edge of this piece of concrete and dislocate your ankle. But other than that, it was a beautiful setting. I mean, I was astonished that such a place existed. What about? I mean, given the fact that you played for the Czech Republic and then you travel to other countries in the region. I mean, you could compare a little bit like what the Czech Republic was and the quality of the grounds in comparison to other countries. I mean, where do you think the Czech Republic stood or maybe still stands in regard to the countries around it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of on par. I think obviously when I was playing for the Czech team, one of our first tours was to the Netherlands, which, you're not going to get anything close to that. There was proper cricket clubs, turf wickets. That was incredible.
Well, they were playing cricket. I think they were playing cricket in the Netherlands before they were in South Africa. I mean, I think that was the first, after the MCC or whatever it was, I think the Dutch National Cricket Board is the second oldest or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that, we're never going to get like that. But I think, having played in Romania has actually got a pretty good setup. They've got a beautiful field.
Yeah.
I played in Hungary. I'd say Hungary it's a nice field. It's probably similar to Vinosh. And then I played Luxembourg. Luxembourg, once again, it's also a nice field. I think for me, the only thing that sets Vinosh back, not that it's a bad thing because you need the space, you need 2 cricket fields, but I'm always a person that loves to play on one field where you feel you're sort of in one area like Valveri was, rather than being, in this one big field and there's two games going on. So Luxembourg was a nice place to play. Hungary was a nice place to play, also just one place. But I think Vinosh has got so much potential. It's just trying to deal with the owners of the land, on all accounts to try and get them to agree with your standings.
Well, I know that Michael, you've got your own little project, I guess, to try and expand the number of grounds here in the Czech Republic?
What do you mean?
Well, you keep on going around all these
Yeah,
fields
that's
and,
true.
and
That's
talking to
true.
people and
you
saying,
mean-
could you play
yeah.
cricket? We could turn this into a
That's
cricket
true.
ground.
Yeah, I don't.
And they're
really,
like, what?
yeah, I don't really want to know people to know that, because it's a bit of an embarrassing hobby of mine to desperately beg for something.
You
but
had my
you're
son.
right.
My son was telling you that he saw he found like some clearing in a forest. He said this could be a good cricket ground. And,
Yeah,
and you said get me the contact of the person who owns the ground and the land, and we'll see if we can.
I'm
make
telling the
contact.
young lads to, and I teach them how to use the maps and the katastrální mapa, so they can search for the possible venues for me. Yeah, but it's a long-term mission, obviously, Ede. I think hopefully we can tell you might be slightly glad that I think the energy is growing recently, and there's a bit of a cooperation again among Czech cricket. So hopefully we'll realize it somehow, either in making Vinos better or find completely different venue. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll invite you, obviously, for some.
I just to kind of, I guess, wrap up on the on the Czech cricket subject. I mean, when you left the country, like what would you say needed to be done really to take Czech cricket to the next level? To use a terrible cliche. But I mean, we've already spoken a little bit about infrastructure. I guess that's one of the things which needs to step forward. But I mean, if you were given like the role of like cricket Tsar of the Czech Republic, what
Development officer?
I think that job's available, isn't it?
I think he'd still do a good job from overseas still.
Yeah. I mean, what would be the things for you? I mean, given your experience and your knowledge of the game here, what would be the things that you'd be prioritising? Do you think?
Yeah, I think for me, the facilities, the training facilities needs to be looked at. I mean, the nets at Olszanska is just...
Yeah, you stopped going, didn't you? You refused to go.
For me, that was just, they didn't promote any form of good cricket. You got no practice out of it. The only thing for me, what I found useful for them was if I wanted to go and have a throwdown and go and hit some balls, someone throwing me balls, I think that was good. So, and once again, what disappoints me is that everything is there. The facilities there, with the spaces there, it could actually be, and I'm not talking about hundreds of thousands of crowns. I'm talking, it won't cost a lot of money to actually get those into a very, very good playing surface. And for me, sometimes less is more. I've always been that person. I believe that, there's 3 nets here at the moment. Do we really need 3 nets? I would rather pump all my money into 1 net and have 1 outstanding net, or just have 2 outstanding nets. So for me, that's the biggest thing in Czech cricket as a whole. National team-wise, I think it's a hard one, because when I was playing, it's all voluntary. It still is. Obviously players aren't getting paid and coaches aren't getting paid. But I think the need for some kind of a professional coach is needed. Even if it's just, on each tour, you have a coach to join you on a tour, because you can learn so much from that coach. I mean, the coaches that we've got at the moment, I'm not actually sure who's going on the tour at the moment. I think that for me is huge. It's just to get a coach involved. And then just having representatives from all the clubs, and and there are some good players at the moment in the Czech team.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. Yeah, and
I agree.
I mean, I remember I managed to bounce you a couple of times on those on that net unintentionally. I think you pitched just back of a length and it nearly took your head off. I went home with a big smile on my face. I was like, I've suddenly turned into Andre Nell. You got any questions? You want to ask a question? I've got questions. As we're talking about Andre Nell, we could move on. I mean, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because I know you're a man of strong opinions on most things, but I know that South African cricket's close to your heart, obviously, and I think on our social media group, on our WhatsApp group, we spend quite a lot of time I guess I wouldn't say winding you up, but we winding you up about the South Africa team. But I mean, it'd be good to just get your feedback on what you make of South African cricket at the moment, its current state. I mean, they've done all right recently. Got to the semi-finals as usual. Beat India as usual. That's not too bad.
Yeah, I think we do have some good players. There's some really, really good players. And unfortunately, there's a couple of players that just, in my opinion, don't deserve to be in the team. And
any particular players you got in mind?
I think, for me, I think everyone knows how I feel about good old Kemba Bavuma. Yeah, he's not someone I'd ever pick in my team.
I mean, you taught me an expression, stealing a living, I think was the one that you taught me. But it's just. Go on, sorry.
No, I just think he made his debut. I was actually at his debut, and I think it must have been 2015 at Newlands. He scored 100 on debut
against England. Yeah.
Against England, and he didn't score another 100 until last year. And he keeps getting picked. He's always injured, and then there's talk about him. He doesn't score runs for months, weeks, and then all of a sudden everyone's talking about him, and then he'll score a lucky 100, and then that's him for the next 2 or 3 months. And I don't know. Not a big fan.
Yeah, I mean, he's to some extent. My view is that he's a bit of a hostage to the situation in South Africa. I mean, in all South African sports, where these transformation targets exist, and that's just the way it is. So I feel a bit sorry for him in that regard. I feel less sorry for someone like Andile Pefluquayo, to be completely honest. His selection really is a mystery. Although he does have a good reverse sweep, to be fair.
That's about all he can do.
Yeah, that's true. But what else? Again, we see a big raft of quick bowlers coming through. Guys that over here we've not heard of. I haven't heard of Nondre Berger. In fact, I thought it was a misspelling. I thought it was Andre. I thought it was N''Andre, like Nondre de Rozan or something like that. But obviously not. But I mean, there's obviously the system keeps on churning out good players.
Yeah, I think the South African first class cricket is pretty weak at the moment. Like you said, Steve, I don't want to talk too much about politics. I don't know enough about politics, but the transformation targets are hitting the country hard, and it's really depleting the quality of first class cricket in South Africa, in my opinion. Others might disagree with me, but I would strongly agree that growing up as a kid in South Africa and seeing the first class cricket that I was watching compared to what it is now, it's nowhere near as good. So the step from that level to test level is huge.
Yeah.
But we do as a country, have phenomenal schools and universities, and the cricket is incredible. Club cricket is strong. So we are churning out good players. It's just, and I think now that Brexit's happened, there's a lot of players that can't go the Kolpak route, which is good for South Africa. So you've got guys and I saw Nondre Berger, I think, for the first time about 2 years ago, and I said, "Well, this guy's got some talent," and I've been watching him for a while, and I'm glad he's been picked. And yeah, I think he's good. And then you got David Bedingham on the other hand, and he looks absolutely quality, but he was an ex-Kolpak player and he's come back.
Yeah, he was interesting because even though he was Kolpak, he was retained by Durham as the overseas player. I think on the back of a couple of seasons ago, he scored 2,000 first-class runs. But he's obviously earned his place in the team, I think, just through weight of runs scored in first-class cricket. Yeah,
absolutely.
One of the things that struck me, as I said, I mean, my son was in Scarborough, in England this year, and and he was at this place called Scarborough College, which is a private school which has its own cricketing centre of excellence. And a couple of the points you made about having professional coaches, I mean, what I saw there that they have a team of professional coaches, and that what that gives young players is just absolutely incredible. But there were a number of South African kids there, who were on scholarships, and there were I think 3 of them there were all. I mean, one of them's in and around the under-19 national team. One of them is on the is playing for the Titans, the junior setup there. These kids were incredibly good cricketers, and I was talking with the fathers of them because they were over, and both of them were inquiring about how they could get British passports, which for me was, and I mean, it was really sad to hear that and they were saying, listen, we don't see any future for our kids staying in South Africa. They're not going to they've got no real chance of getting to the highest levels because of who they are. And that for me is a bad sign. I mean, I fully understand the notion of the transformation targets and I actually support them. I think it's a really important thing. And you can see that if it's done properly, the case of rugby union, it actually is effective, but clearly there's something that isn't working within the cricket setup in South Africa, which is bringing that about. But what that does mean is that you're bleeding talent, and there's a huge amount of talent out there coming out of the South African school system, which is just not being taken up, and that for me is. But that was really that really struck me when I was back in the UK this year.
Yeah, and that's an issue that's been going on for a long time now in all sports in South Africa. You got young kids who are just incredible athletes or incredible sportsmen, and they're just not getting anywhere. They're not getting picked, and it's down to the color of the skin, or it's a horrible situation. And like I said, I'm not against transformation targets either. I think, being in South Africa and seeing what the country's been through, I think this is important. But I also think, at the end of the day, I think everybody, whether you're black, white, whatever color or race you are, you want to see your best 11 players on the cricket field. And that's what I want to see.
Yeah.
And whether that's 11 black players, I don't care. I just want to see the best 11 players playing cricket for South Africa.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Do you think that South Africa will ever actually win anything?
I don't think so.
Only in rugby.
Exactly. You have to stick to rugby. Ever the optimist. Michael, do you want to ask?
No, let's change the subject again. We wanted to ask you, what about your USA cricket career? Can we expect something going on? Are you going to captain the USA team for the Olympics, for example?
I would love to get involved in cricket here, but being in Minnesota, it's I think the big states are Texas in particular. That's a big cricket state, But I've also, since I knew that I was moving to the States, or even longer, I've kind of followed US cricket, and they've got some good players, but it seems like politics is ruining their sport as well, and things aren't run.
They had like 2 boards or something at one point, didn't they? I mean, it was utter chaos.
It's more like a Latin American cricket.
But yeah, I mean, I'd love to get involved in cricket at some stage, and next year is the T20 World Cup in the West Indies and in the Caribbean, and a few games in the States. So I'm planning on going down to Texas to watch a few games. Okay. And yeah, we'll see.
Great. I noticed I've been following on your Facebook page that you've been turning up at the Minnesota Twins games. So have you migrated across to baseball a little bit since you've gone there?
Yeah, I mean, I love baseball, but cricket's my love. It just makes me. It's strange because the Americans love their baseball, but it is such a boring sport, and everyone says cricket's boring. But like, you can go to a baseball game and just nothing happens for like 2 hours, 3 hours, and finally they've started this pitch clock.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's a hell of a boring sport, and I just think cricket is so exciting. T20 cricket, the Americans would just love it, and it's getting there. I mean, last year they had the Major League Cricket, their version of the IPL, and big names coming out.
How did that go?
Good.
How did that go in your opinion? The T20 US League.
I think it was okay. I think they didn't get the crowds they wanted. But once again, I think they, the things I've been reading is they struggle with facilities, and there's the crowds were at the stadiums, but there was a lack of toilet facilities and a lack of food options and all these things. So it stops people from going. So I think this is something they need to learn from.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've also started to get interested in baseball. I go and watch baseball, and people say to me, baseball must be really slow. And I'm like, well, I'm used to watching Test cricket. So actually, it's not that slow. I can survive. But I go and watch baseball here in the Czech Republic as well because my lad started playing, and I like the game. And I look forward to the day when in cricket we have a $700 million transfer for this. What's his name? Shohei Ohtani signs a $700 million deal to go and play for the LA Dodgers. That is the amount of money that I guess would keep Czech cricket going forever. I mean, for like 700 million years.
or Czech national team playing in the T20 World Championship show as a baseball parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
And so for your son, then, you're like Cooper. What's he going to be doing? He's going to be playing cricket or baseball? Have you already decided what he wants to do, or has he got
ice hockey now?
Has he got two different types? Of course, up in Minnesota, he'll be an ice hockey boy as well. And he was born in the Czech Republic, so
I would like to get him into baseball. I think cricket. I'd love to get him into cricket, but having no cricket here, it's going to be tough. But yeah, baseball. Baseball's big. Yeah, football's big, and then obviously ice hockey's big. I'm not an ice hockey fan myself, but I'd love him to play baseball.
There must be some kind of Minnesota Cricket League or something like that floating around, Ed. I'm sure there's something.
There is something. There's definitely a few fields I've seen, and I've actually, funny enough, I drove past some kids playing cricket in the summer. I'm going to look more into in the summer of next year, and see what I can find.
I just wonder what your wife's going to say. She's going to be like, "Listen, you stay away from those cricket fields. Forget it. Like, I'm not losing you I'm not having you disappearing off for a weekend with that stupid game again."
Okay, so Ede, I think we probably discussed all the important issues we wanted to talk with you about. So thanks again for joining us. It was a real pleasure.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks very much, Ed. Thanks.
Looking forward to seeing you again very soon, hopefully. And enjoy Minnesota. Say goodbye. Say hi to Cooper and Lindsay.
Yeah, and we'll look forward to seeing you. Hopefully we'll see you back here in Prague Absolutely. At some point. Yeah, and
we'll be back at some point.
Good stuff, and we'll be waiting for you to take you up to Vino's and bring your beer with you.
I'll personally take you to Vino's toilet facilities.
There is toilet roll these days.
Yeah. No. Anyway, thank you very much, and thanks and thanks everyone for listening to the first official English-speaking episode.
Yes.
We'll see if it's gonna become a tradition.
I suspect not, but who knows?
Anyway,
thanks. Cheers, Ed. Take care.
Ciao, bye.